What's up, Attack MMA? I'm your host, Zach Weicker, and today we got a very special guest. He's a professional fighter with a 21-10 record, coming off a huge victory at UFC Fight Night in Edmonton over Chad and Helger. Please welcome Cody Gibson. Cody, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Enjoying some time off work and trying to keep my kids from killing each other.
Cody, I'm going to start nice and simple. How are you currently feeling after the big win earlier this month?
I've been good. Just no real serious injuries or anything, so that's nice. Had some knee pain after the fight, so I wouldn't got an MRI, but nothing was torn, just some little stuff. So dealing with that a little bit, but not, I'm back in the gym already and started a new strength program, 16-week strength program. So I'm been busy doing that, and yeah, I'm good.
To go a little more in depth, what does this strength program entail?
Well, I was working with the PI for the last few fights. When I was in Vegas, I would work with them obviously in person. But then when I did this last camp at home, I live in the central coast of California. Um, I worked with them remotely where we have an app we use and they are able to upload my workouts. And I used a trainer here locally to kind of just help guide me. Um, but I ended up hiring an outside guy from Quebec. Guys worked with some high level fighters in the UFC and just a little bit more, attention to your you get the diagnostic test done at the PI and it tells you kind of where your areas of growth are. And so just a little bit more individual attention on focusing on some of those things. And then I really just liked his conditioning stuff. Um, Talking about like the three energy systems you use in fighting and how do you hit each of those energy systems in the gym when you're doing some cardio stuff. So just kind of see eye to eye with him on a lot of his beliefs on how to train for a fight. And so, yeah, I hired him and been working with him remotely and just trying to stay diligent. It's a little bit challenging during the holidays. I got to go to the gym today, and I was like, man, I got all this stuff going on at home, and I was like, it'd be really easy. It'd be really easy to skip. But those are the times, those gut checks. You're like, nope, I gotta go. I'm committed to this program, so I'll make it happen.
Yeah. And how would you say your body feels now that you're on this program to before you were doing this program?
Well, I'm only about 2 weeks in, so right now it's not like drastically different than stuff I've done before, but just some areas of growth that I'm trying to work on, and it's not going to happen in 6 sessions or 8 sessions. It accumulates after the 30th, 40th, 50th session. Yeah, I like where we're going so far, and so we'll see. Hopefully a bigger, better version of myself.
Yes, indeed. And now something that I'm always curious about is after you get the big win, every fighter has their different approach on how they celebrate the victory. So how'd you celebrate the big win?
Um, we actually stayed an extra day in Edmonton. Just originally, what I was hoping for was I've never been ice fishing, and I thought I could go ice fishing. Only to come, and so when I told the UFC, hey, book me for a day later to come home, before I kind of jumped the gun on that because then I started calling around to the various lakes around Edmonton, and they were all like, yeah, our season doesn't start until like the middle of December. And so I was like, oh, damn. So we ended up just hanging out on White Avenue in Edmonton and meeting up with local people and checking out some shops and we watched some football, drank some beer, ate some good bar food. It was a good day.
Sounds like a typical Sunday. And this is your first time with the UFC getting back-to-back wins. So how did it feel not just get one win in the company, but to get two in a row?
Yeah, I just think fighting's weird. So much of it's mental, and so much of it is does feel like momentum. And so when you start a win streak and you get accumulate a couple in a row, or you're always searching for the next one. I got to get to three in a row, and then I got to get to four in a row, and you just try to build on it. So, um, staying grounded in what got me here, and put my best foot forward for whatever comes next. First quarter of 2025.
Yeah. And something I've heard you mention previously is the struggle and confidence, which I think that's something that a lot of people can relate with. What are some ways that you try to build up your confidence and try to find the best version of yourself?
I mean, for me, it's like I really don't have a lot of confidence, but I do have confidence um, in preparation in the work that we do and the people around me. Um, so if the people around me are invested and I'm putting in the work and um, I show up to that fight, and I've done everything I can to put myself in the best position I can be in on that day. Um, that's where I have confidence. I'm like confident in my preparation. I'm confident in my cardio and my abilities. Um, and it really just stems from that. It stems from 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks of just being diligent. And that's the thing about like fighting. I don't know. I mean, I never really played any other sports other than wrestling. So, at least not like super competitively in my like high school years. Um, but fighting is all consuming, like every aspect of my life is dictated around fighting, whether it be my diet, my sleep patterns, uh, everything, and so the more dialed in I can be in every avenue of my life, it all goes back to putting myself in the best position I can be in, and so making the right sacrifices and being willing to just endure that, because that's what it is. It sucks, nobody loves getting up super early, nobody loves doing the extra work, and it's I don't care who you are. Like whether you're making $1 million a fight or $1,000 a fight. Like it's not fun to have to do those things, but it's the necessary things you have to do, and that's where I get confidence from is when I put in the work and I feel like I've done everything I can, and because then I'm just proud of myself, and I'm proud of the work that me and my team have put together, um and so I'm less concerned with the outcome, because it's like of course you want to show up and you want to perform to the best of your abilities. You want to win, you want to get a bonus, you want to get a finish, all these things you want. But at the end of the day, it's like where's the value lie? Like the value lies in the lessons learned, the habits formed, that's where the value lies above all of it, everything else. So yeah, that's kind of what I draw confidence from is when I know I've done those things.
Yeah. And hearing you talk there kind of reminds me of during the post-fight press conference where you're kind of disappointed with your performance because you knew you can do better. Now, looking back at the fight now, would you say you have a different perspective on the fight?
I mean, yeah, I was a little hard on myself, and I think for me, like, of course, I want to win the fight, but I want to get a finish, and I want to put my name in the hat, so to speak, to get a bonus. And so that's always like priority number two, other than just winning. Um, and so I felt like, you know, I could have found a way to finish that fight, um, especially that third round. It was more, just the lactic acid buildup. Um, and my arms were pretty shot. It wasn't even like a cardio thing where I was like breathing super heavy or like my heart rate was super high. It was more my arms were shot. And that third round, I was laughing with my coaches last night because I hadn't seen one of my coaches. He'd been out of town, and um, he said that third round. I was like, yeah, I was just trying to. I was getting 5 minutes of riding time that third round. Like like I didn't have much left to hurt him, and I was having trouble with my submissions, like finishing them. And so I was just like, I'm getting 5 minutes of riding time. It brought me back to college wrestling. So
Yeah. And the big story of that whole card, but especially your fight, because you're the first one to implement it, was the new rule of the 12 to 6 elbows. So what was your whole opinion on the addition of that rule and the other rules, and how'd you like being able to use them?
yeah, I think the 12 to 6 is a good option in certain positions. My two favorite positions to use it are from the guard and from the mount. Um, I just feel like it creates the right angle that's hard to defend. A side elbow is relatively easy to defend if you have both your arms available. Um, and then the chopping elbow down the middle, while that's a harder one to defend, it's also a bigger risk for the top guy to give give position. Maybe the guy slips to your back or something. Um, Whereas that 12-6 just downward elbow, it's hard to defend. And so anytime I'm in guard or mount, that's what I'm gonna be shooting for, is just dropping 12-6 elbows. Because to me, at least when I've been playing around with it and like trying it out in different positions and where it's most accessible, those are the positions I feel like that you're gonna see it the most in.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it's a great new element to the sport, and especially to the UFC. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you are the first fighter to legally cut an opponent with the 12-6 elbows. So how does that feel?
Yeah, the referee came up to me after the fight in the back, and he was like, "Hey," he like stopped me. He was like, "You're the first person to get a cut with the new rule," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, I guess I don't know, like, yeah, I'm gonna keep trying to use those. I was surprised I didn't cut him up worse because I landed some nasty elbows, but I landed the 112-6 to cut him on the head. It was like a thin hairline cut, but it was long. And there's a couple though that I landed flush, and I'm surprised he's got some good skin. Some guys like me, I cut up pretty easy now. My eyes are all like thin, and so I feel like I get cut up a lot easier. So kudos to him because I thought I was gonna cut him up a lot worse. He looked a lot better than I anticipated him looking after the fight.
Yeah, and you did travel up to Edmonton for this fight to take down a hometown guy. So are you someone that likes being the spoiler and kind of like taking down the hometown guy, or that doesn't really play a factor for you?
I think what I've learned is that whether it's like people cheering for you or people booing for you or against you or whatever, like energy in a room is what I thrive off of. So whether it's positive or negative is kind of irrelevant. It's just the energy that is produced in a big coliseum type, big venue with a lot of people. Um, and that starts at weigh-ins when they do like the ceremonial weigh-ins, and you feel that energy, and then obviously fight night. So it didn't really matter to me. I just like fighting in front of people, and I like feeding off that energy. And but it was a little surprising. I was like, oh shit, they're all cheering for this guy.
Yeah. And now that we are in like this Apex era where a lot of the fights are just getting booked in the Apex, you've had the opportunity to fight in front of a crowd a few times and during your second stint. So how grateful are you for the opportunity to fight in front of a live crowd?
Yeah, I really prefer it, over the Apex cards. I know, the Apex cards are they're very streamlined. So like I get it. Like it's really easy for the UFC to put on an event because they've done it so many times and they've got everything dialed in. So I will say that about the Apex cards, but I don't know. I like I said, I like having energy in a room and a live audience. I feel like fighting is a sport that requires that. And so there's been talks as that they're shutting down the Apex, I think, for a while, um, to do some you know development. And there's been talks I've heard about the Apex growing as far as the seating, and then a hotel being put in between the PI and the Apex. And so we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. So it'd be nice if they're gonna. I get why they have the Apex cards. They have to put out so many shows, a year with ESPN's deal, and not all of those are going to be pay-per-views. Um, I still prefer, and it sounds like they're going to be doing more traveling even for their fight nights here in 2025. So that's cool. I love exploring new places and visiting new places, and um, like people were like, "Where are you going to fight?" And I was like, "Edmonton, Alberta, Canada." Like, here's a place I never thought I would go. Um, and so I still have fun like just traveling and checking out new places. So hopefully, until they get the Apex kind of figured out as far as the size and maybe some improvements they can make it, and they start hitting the road. So we'll see. But yeah, I'll knock on wood. I hope I don't end up at an Apex show next year. You know.
Yeah, hopefully. And you mentioned traveling there, and you have traveled to a few different places. So is there a certain place that you haven't traveled to yet that you would like to with the UFC?
Yeah, I'd really like them to send me to Europe. Um, they when they book your flights, they always, this is the day we need you out there. It's usually like that Monday or Tuesday of the fight week. And then they always say, you want to fly home on Sunday, like the day after the fight. And if they sent me out to Europe, I'd be like, book me for like a month later. Like I would just go out and then I would just backpack around, after the fight. So I know they're going out to London in March, and I was supposed to fight Davy Grant um, back in March, and he had to pull out of the fight. He had a neck injury and I think he had surgery and everything, and so he's making his first fight back in a couple weeks, December 14th, I think in Tampa. And
Yeah.
so if he's successful in that fight, which I think he should be, I would love to see if I could get that fight back in March in London. Play the spoiler once again, and I just really was excited for that fight. We trained the whole fight camp for Davey, and it wasn't until the last couple of weeks that it switched. So I'd like to get that one back, and I just think it'd be a fun fight. So, and I want to go to London and then backpack through Europe. So
Yeah.
if it was up to me, if we lived in that world, that's what I would choose for next. But we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And that would definitely be a great fight and one that I believe all fans would be excited for. And you are someone that puts on a lot of exciting fights. So do you pride yourself on the fact that you can put in exciting fights on for the fans?
Yeah, that's for me. I like being an entertainer, and I would say like the goal is to, whether you're the first fight of the night or you're the main event, like I want people to drive home talking about my fight. Like that's kind of always a goal of mine, is I want them to be like, that was insane. Like that was crazy. Um, Sometimes that's to my own detriment because it means I get in firefights, and there's a lot of ups and downs and adversity, and but people like that. It's like a movie. You're gonna have, what would a movie be without a conflict? Like you need conflict, you need to resolve the conflict. Like, and fights are kind of sometimes when you're in the good ones, they get to play out that way where there's a lot of momentum shifts and ups and downs, and like sometimes I like being a part of those. I mean, obviously you wish you just go out and dominate every fight and smash everybody and everything like that, but that doesn't always happen. So yeah, I pride myself in, I want to be known as an exciting fighter because I don't know, I don't know what it is, but I like, you have your favorite fighters that I like to watch, and that excite me, like to go watch. I can't miss this guy's fights. Whenever he's fighting, I'm going to tune in. Um, I want to be known as one of those kind of guys.
Yeah. And someone I always think about when you think of firefights was your tough head coach, Michael Chandler. And he's someone that was just in a big fight against Charles Oliveira. So what was your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised that Oliveira was able to take him down as much as he was. Um, and I think that could just be size. Oliveira is such a long, lanky guy, and I mean, I know he's not like a traditional wrestler, but um, yeah, he had some good takedowns, and Chandler played it, smart when he was on the ground. He just stayed out of trouble. And Oliveira's, usually more dangerous on his back. So it's a little bit of a different dynamic, but I mean, Mike hung in there, man, and he had his moments, and I know a lot of the people are on the internet were saying a lot of illegal shots to the back of the head and stuff, which, yeah, there were probably some that landed for sure, it looked like, but, you know, uh, he put on a hell of a fight like he always does. And then the slams in the fifth round were just like, he couldn't get him off of him, but he's like, this is entertainment, and so he went after it. So I thought it was good. I thought, all things considered, given the history of the McGregor stuff and waiting and then it not materializing and then finally getting in a fight, a big high profile fight. One, I think he showed that he's still a pretty high level fighter. A lot of people might talk like, oh, he's getting older. He hasn't fought in a couple of years. Why is he ranked whatever he's ranked, pretty high up there? I mean, when's the last time Oliveira just decisioned the guy, like
Yeah.
5 rounds? He couldn't get him out of there this time. Um, and I thought, obviously he was competitive in certain moments and had opportunities to win. So to me, it didn't really like for me, as a fan and just like looking on, I don't see it as like his stock fell too far. Um, he still lines himself up for another big fight against somebody, whether that be McGregor or whoever else. Um, so yeah, I thought all things considered, considering he lost the fight, it wasn't a bad night by any means.
Yeah. And you just mentioned McGregor right there, but especially now with all the legal stuff going on and McGregor playing his usual antics, do you still see that fight happening one day?
I honestly don't know if McGregor ever fights again. Like that's kind of where my head's at. Like I think he's got a lot going on in his personal life. I think he's got a lot of demons, and I think he's got to deal. I mean, I don't want to see him come back unless he's clean, and I don't mean that from a performance enhancing standpoint. I mean clean from drugs, because I think it's pretty obvious at this point that he's had some substance abuse problems, and you don't want to see that for anybody. And so I would love to see Connor like clean himself up and like go, put the right people around him and make a comeback. I mean, how cool that's the kind of story we all would want to see, but at this point it's just kind of sad in my view. And so yeah, I don't really foresee him ever coming back until those things happen.
Yeah, for sure. And McGregor, someone that hasn't been active in a while, to you, someone who fought 3 times this year. So, how important is it for you to be active, and especially as someone who's not, I wouldn't say not in their prime, but someone that's a little older in age, as like you are 37?
Yeah, I mean, you start to, there's definitely a different sense of urgency when you're 37 and as opposed to when you're 27. Like you want to get them in because you don't know how many you got left. So, I still feel good. And, but even though I still feel good and, um, I don't feel like age is creeping up on me quite yet. Like, as far as like, I don't know, you see it like, sometimes you just see a fighter, you'll see them fight, and it's like, oh, they're gone. Like for me, like Tony Ferguson was the prime example. Like, and it wasn't like, oh, he lost 7 in a row or whatever. It was like, I can't remember which fight it was, but there was a fight where he came back after the knee injury. It might have been that first fight back, but maybe one after that. And it was like, nah, he's not the same guy. Like it was just obvious. And Diego Sanchez was another one that was like, nah, like this guy's past it. And so I haven't, when I see myself like that, like that's when I'm gonna know, all right, you're done. Like now it's just maybe have some fun fights that they'll still give them to you, but you kind of know you're done. So I still feel like I'm growing and improving, and I haven't hit that moment. So yeah, I don't know, but you do have a different sense of urgency. And if I'm McGregor, yeah, I don't know how old he is. He's not much younger than I am. So yeah, it would have to happen sooner than later.
Yeah. And as we mentioned, you are 37, but honestly, I feel like this is the best version of you we've seen in the cage. So, compared to your first stint in the UFC, what have you done to improve in the cage to the current version you are today?
I think just always being a student, like always trying to learn, improve, and uh, I moved from the where I grew up and where the gyms I was at for my first time around in the UFC to the second. I moved about 4.5 years ago, and I feel like I'm in a really good system that I've learned a lot from, and so um, yeah, I mean that's the main. Like you're just constantly making improvements, trying to better yourself, trying to get better in different avenues, whether it be in the grappling, in the wrestling, in the wall work, in the striking. You're just trying to make improvements all the time, and you have that mentality and you're gonna make the improvements. It might not come at the same pace as everybody else, but like if you come into practice every day and you're just kind of like there, and you're just like, oh, I'm here to sweat, and you're not trying to really make improvements or focus on things, then you're gonna get out of that what you put in. But if every single day you go to the gym and you're like, what am I gonna get better at today, even if it's the smallest of things, um, and then you focus on it and you work it and you put in the reps and you drill it, it's gonna happen. Like
Yeah,
it's really that simple. But that's why I feel like I continue to get better as I get older, and hopefully got some more growth ahead of me.
for sure. And a period where you've probably saw a lot of growth was your time on the regional scene in between your first stint to UFC to now. And during that stint, you had a lot of impressive wins, like over John Dobson, who's a former title contender. So, looking back at your run on the regional scene, how would you describe it, and how crucial was that whole stint for you to get back into the UFC?
Yeah, it kind of came in uh, different waves where I had a lot of fights right after I left the organization back in 2015, and then um, I had retired. I retired for over a year. Thought I was done doing it, and then I came back and fought for the LFA for a main event against a Brazilian dude. And after that, I thought, oh man, I'm gonna just keep it rolling. And then had some injuries where I had surgeries, and then COVID hit. There's just it's a long story, And after COVID, and I made the move to the Central Coast and joined the guys of the pit where I train at now. Um, that's when I started picking it back up and like fighting consistently, getting 3, 4, 5 fights a year, and trying to stay consistently busy. And it's really been a roller coaster ever since then. And then even after yeah, I won a couple regional belts and like beat some guys that have been in the UFC or fought for the title, top 10, kind of guys. And I was at a point where I was like, man, I don't have anywhere else to go. Like the UFC's not calling. I'm 30. I think I was like 35 at the time. I was like, I'm done fighting for 4 grand, like it's not worth it. So I didn't really know what to do. And then sometimes the stars align, and the Ultimate Fighter was happening, and they're doing my weight class, and they're doing a season of veterans and prospects. Like it couldn't have worked out better for me. And then just been riding that wave ever since.
Yeah, it's truly an incredible story. And I want to touch on you outside of the cage. You are a big family man. You have 3 kids. So, how would you describe fatherhood, and how would you say fatherhood has developed you into the man you are today?
It just grounded me, and you know, I don't, I used to be a little wild. I like to go out and socialize a little bit, probably more than I should have. And so being a father's kind of tamed me down a little bit, and it just gives me motivation to focus on the things that are going to make my life better, my family's life better. It gives me it's pretty easy to get up early in the morning when you're looking at your kids every day, and you're like, I'm trying to give you a better life. Like the least I can do is put my best foot forward and my best effort, because otherwise what am I doing? Like what am I doing? So it's easy to get motivated when you got 3 kids staring up at you. And yeah, they've definitely changed me and maybe mature. And I think back, man, I had kids. First kid I had was my oldest is 8, so I was like 29. So I was relatively old, not old, but like I was a good age. But I think back, if I'd have had kids at 20, man, I would have not been father. I would not have been winning any Father of the Year awards. So um, I think me and my wife were smart about waiting until we were a little bit older to have kids, because if you want to be good at being a parent, like it's a full-time job.
Yeah, for sure, man. And to some different kids that aren't yours, you're also a teacher. So, I'm curious what got you to want to be in the classroom.
Yeah, I just like giving back to my community. I love the sport of wrestling, and attribute a lot of like wrestling saved my life in a lot of ways. And so I feel like I'm indebted to it, and I need to give that to other people. And so wanting to be a coach and expose young boys and girls to the sport of wrestling was kind of my initial push into wanting to go into education. Um, and then teaching in the classroom is also fun. You get to make an impact on kids' lives in positive ways. And, you look at the world sometimes, it's very easy to look at the world and see how messed up everything is, and kind of get down, kind of get down on how things are going and the direction of things. And it's hard, man. So for me, like, if I can make little change in my own little community, like if everybody did that, like we would have a better world. So I'm not like I'm not doing anything too crazy, but just being a positive person in my community. There's something to that I find it suits me.
Yeah, I love that, man. I really do. And you mentioned there that wrestling changed your life. It saved your life. So to go in a little more in depth on that, how did wrestling save your life?
Just I was at a stage in my life when I found it where I was getting in a lot of trouble and kind of grew up skateboarding in the '90s, and so you're around that environment at skate parks and you're skating all day, or right after school you're heading to the skate park, and I love skateboarding. My brother was a lot better than I was, but I loved doing it. It was a lot of fun when I was young, but I didn't have a lot of like connection to school. Um, and so I was getting into a lot of fights. I was getting exposed to, drugs and stuff like that. And, I was not on a good path. I didn't really have a desire or a reason to care about my grades or school or any of that. And so my parents, I think I got suspended like pretty early on my freshman year of high school for getting into a fight, and my parents were like, you gotta do something. And I like basketball, but I was really short my freshman year. I was like 5'4", and so basketball wasn't in my future, and so they geared me toward wrestling. My brother wrestled, and so once I found it, I just fell in love with it. Started doing it year round. Didn't play any other sports. Stopped skateboarding. I just started wrestling every day. Find a mat, find a room somewhere in the area where somebody was having a practice or something was happening, and so yeah, it just kind of gave me purpose and direction and identity, and so I'm pretty passionate about wanting to share that with other people, and uh, sports in general, but for me specifically wrestling, like just I got to give that to somebody else because man, I don't know what I would have happened to me without it.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's such a phenomenal sport that just teaches you a lot of discipline and stuff. But my final question for you, it's the day before Thanksgiving when we're recording this. So what are a few things in life you're thankful for?
Thankful for my family is probably my main, just the people around me. Sometimes like I said, it's easy to think about the grass is always greener on the other side. The thing you're shooting for, which is great, gives you drive and purpose and direction. But being thankful for the things you do have. We're sitting here talking on this Zoom app on these little devices. Like I'm thankful for that. Like, look how easy it is to communicate. Or you know, um, thankful for a lot of things in life. And I think I've been doing a lot of reading and stuff on like gratitude and like learning gratitude and what to be thankful for and that you have. And everything's about perspective. Um, the things we worry about and like, oh, I don't have X, Y, and Z, or this isn't working out for me very well. Like, there's always like a story out there that puts things into perspective, and you're like, man, I really need to stop complaining about things because some people have it so much worse. Um, so yeah, just trying to lead every day with that attitude of like have gratitude for the things in your life, while at the same time striving for the next thing you're shooting for. Because I think that's important too. So
Cody, it was more than a pleasure having you on. Folks, that'll be all for today. Until next time, peace.